Hi guys, it's Barnes. Today I'm going to be talking about why I have 7 bank accounts and how I use those bank accounts to accomplish my financial goals. So the first reason why I have these bank accounts is simply to keep my money organized. Each bank account has a function and I know exactly what they're for. My second thing is automation, and that simply means that all of my paychecks are on direct deposit, and I split my direct deposits among my bank accounts, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Second thing is that I use autopay for a lot of my bills, so I have specific bank accounts where the autopay comes from, and that way I always have enough money in that bank account to pay for those bills. Next thing that I'm working on, if you haven't already been able to tell from my channel, is that I'm trying to pay off my debt. I have a specific bank account where all the extra money that I have goes directly into that bank account, so I know how much money I can put toward my student loan debt. Next thing is simply for savings. So I have a emergency fund that I'm working on funding, and right now I'm trying to fund about a year's worth of expenses. So I have money directly deposited from my paycheck into that bank account. So I have all the bank accounts here, and I'm going to go ahead and start talking about them. So the first bank accounts are with Capital One 360, and I've been with Capital One from a long time ago when it was called ING. And that was a great bank, and I think it was one of the first banks that was solely online and had a high interest yield. Now it's turned to Capital One, and it still offers the high interest yield accounts. Not as high as other banks, but acceptable. I think now it's about 1%. I also have a checking account with Capital One, and I will talk about that as well. So the checking account with Capital One is pretty awesome because it comes with a debit card, and that debit card does not incur international transaction fees. So I use that bank account and debit card slowly for when I go overseas and travel. Next, I have the savings account with them, and the savings account with them are pretty great because you can do what a lot of people on YouTube do and create several bank accounts and make them sinking funds for various things that you know you're gonna have to pay for during the year, but they only come once or twice a year, but you want to have that money put aside so you have it when you're ready. I don't use my bank account necessarily for that. The one that I have, the savings account that I have with them, I use it only for an emergency fund, and that is the Dave Ramsey emergency fund of solely $1,000 that you can quickly get to whenever you need because it is attached to the debit card, so you can get your money whenever you want, and that is what I use it for. So the third bank account that I have is a high yield internet bank savings account, and that is currently yielding about 2% APR, and that is where I'm putting my 1-year emergency fund. So what I'll do is every time I get paid, I have a certain amount of money from my direct deposit that goes directly into that account that is saved. And it doesn't have a debit card, so there's a very limited way to access those funds, and that is to simply transfer them between the bank accounts that I have. And I do have it linked to a few of my bank accounts in the event that I do need that money emergently. I can get it, but it takes about 2 to 3 business days for that to happen, so it's definitely for dire emergencies. You can't just dip into it anytime you want to. And the fourth bank account that I have is at a credit union. It's a checking account, and that is where I put all the money that I'm going to need for my fixed expenses. So that is the account where most of the auto pays that I have for my auto pay bills for the month, that is the account that they come from. And that does come with the debit card, but I do not use that debit card because the bills, I put a certain amount of money in there, and I do not want to be mistakenly spending money from that account when I know I have bills to be paid. The next account, which is in the same bank, that is simply a savings account, and that is where I put what most people call sinking funds that I talked about earlier, and that just has expenses that I pay yearly and every 6 months, such as my property taxes, auto insurance, and home insurance. And whenever those bills come due, I simply transfer the money from that account into my fixed expense account, which is at the same bank. So the sixth account is also another credit union, and this is where I put my variable expenses money, and that is in a checking account with a debit card that is attached to it. Once again, with my direct deposit, I put a certain amount of money into this account. That is usually on average how much money I spend on variable expenses, and that includes things like groceries, gas, just small things like that. Then in that same banking system, I have a savings account, and that savings account has all the money that is extra from my paycheck, and I use that money to pay off debt. So the money goes into that account every 2 weeks, and then once I've paid all my bills from the other accounts and I have spent most of the money that I'm going to spend on variable expenses, then I use the money in that savings account. I transfer it over to the variable expenses account, and I spend that on my debt, which right now is student loans at Navient. So I just transfer that money over and then directly debit the money and pay my student loan. That is it for all of my bank accounts. I will list what I just said in the description below so that you can follow through or understand a little bit better, because I kind of have a hard time explaining myself on video, which I'm working on. If you're interested in other financial videos and things that are related to debt payment and my debt journey at the moment, then definitely subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them below and I'll get back to you guys. All right, bye-bye.